It was one of those nights you never forget, the kind that feels like pure magic. The moment I walked through that door and heard everyone yell surprise, my heart just about burst. Balloons everywhere, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, my favorite people smiling back at me. And right there in the middle was Ryan, holding this gorgeous cake with my name written in gold. I felt so overwhelmed with love, so grateful, thinking, wow, how did I get this lucky? The room buzzed with laughter, hugs, and the kind of joy that wraps around you like a warm blanket. Honestly, it felt like I was living inside a perfect little moment. And then, Ryan introduced me to her. "Emma, this is Vanessa," he said, with that charming smile of his. "She's a friend of ours." I didn't think twice about it. I just smiled, reached out my hand, and welcomed her in like I would with anyone Ryan cared about. And honestly, she seemed lovely. We clicked right away, chatting about the food, laughing over some silly story, even snapping a few photos together like we'd known each other for years. Looking back now, it's wild how none of it felt off, not even for a second. And let me tell you, Vanessa? Oh, she was good, sweet, thoughtful. The kind of woman who notices your dress, refills your wine, and says all the right things to make you feel seen. By the end of the night, I actually caught myself thinking, what a wonderful person. I hope we stay in touch. I had absolutely no clue, none, that the woman smiling next to me, the one hugging me in those photos, wasn't just some guest. She was the woman my husband had been sleeping with behind my back. And she stood there, right in the middle of my birthday. You know what's crazy? Thinking back, there were no red flags. None. Ryan was the perfect husband that night, refilling my glass, checking if I was having fun, whispering how beautiful I looked every chance he got. And Vanessa? Right there in the mix. Laughing with my friends, complimenting my decorations, acting like she genuinely belonged in my life. There wasn't a single crack in their performance. Not one. If anything, I walked around that party feeling like the luckiest woman alive, completely oblivious to the fact that the biggest lie of my life was unfolding right under my nose. At one point, I remember standing there, looking around the room, thinking, wow, I'm so blessed. Everyone I loved was right there. My family, my friends, the man I trusted more than anyone, and her. And that's what haunts me the most when I look back. She wasn't just some stranger lurking in the background. No. She was front and center. She hugged me. She smiled at me. She looked me in the eyes, while knowing exactly what she was doing. And Ryan? He stood by, cool as ever, pretending to be the perfect husband, like this was just another happy chapter in our marriage. I even remember this one moment so clearly. We were taking a group photo. Ryan had his arm around me, and Vanessa was right there on my other side, smiling like she was part of the family. I didn't think twice about it. If anything, I felt grateful that Ryan had friends like her, kind, sweet, thoughtful. God, the irony, the sheer cruelty of it. Standing there, posing for pictures with the two people who were betraying me in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. Smiling, completely clueless. I remember sitting there later that night, watching Ryan give this sweet little toast. He talked about love, about partnership, about how grateful he was to share his life with me. People clapped. Some even wiped away a tear, and there I was, soaking it all in, believing every single word that came out of his mouth. I looked at him thinking, God, I am so lucky to have a man like this. Meanwhile, sitting just a few feet away was the woman who knew the truth, who knew that every word he was saying was a lie. If you asked me then, I would have told you that night was perfect. I felt loved, celebrated, cherished. surrounded by people who cared about me, or so I thought. There was no doubt in my mind that Ryan was a good man, a loyal husband, the person I had built my life with. And Vanessa? Oh, she was just the sweet friend who somehow made the night even more special. Someone I was actually looking forward to getting to know better. Can you believe that? I welcomed her into my heart, into my home, into my life. But here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. They didn't just betray me. They did it boldly, fearlessly. They stood there, side by side, smiling in my photos, toasting to my life, hugging me like nothing was wrong, like I was the fool at my own party. And the worst part? I had no idea, no clue that the woman shaking my hand was the same woman who had been sharing my husband's bed. Not a clue that this beautiful night, this perfect little celebration, was nothing more than a stage, a show, a beautiful lie. For a few days after the party, I was still floating on that high. You know, that feeling you get when life feels right. I kept scrolling through the photos and videos, smiling at the memories, sending little thank you messages to everyone. And then, something caught my eye. A video one of my friends had taken, just a candid little clip of everyone mingling, laughing. But in the background, there they were, Ryan and Vanessa. And suddenly, something just didn't sit right. I paused the video, watched it again. There was this moment, so small that most people wouldn't even notice, where Ryan brushed her arm. Not accidentally. No. It was subtle, but it lingered. And then, the way they looked at each other. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't casual. It was familiar. Way too familiar. My stomach tightened. My brain tried to rationalize it. Stop it. You're overthinking. Don't be that wife. Don't be paranoid. But once you see something, you can't unsee it. I told myself to shake it off. Maybe it was just nothing. But deep down, this tiny seed of doubt had been planted, and as much as I wanted to ignore it, I couldn't. I felt it gnawing at me, this little whisper in the back of my mind saying, something isn't right. And I swear, once you start questioning one thing, suddenly, everything starts to feel like a clue, a puzzle you didn't even know you were supposed to be solving. A couple of days later, I was doing something completely ordinary, cleaning the house. You know, folding laundry, picking up jackets that Ryan always left hanging on the back of chairs. Same routine as always. And that's when it happened. I grabbed his jacket, and something slipped out of the pocket. A crumpled little piece of paper, harmless at first glance. But when I unfolded it, my heart practically stopped. It was a receipt from a hotel, dated 2 days before my birthday. At first, my brain couldn't even process it. I just stared at it, reading the address over and over. The hotel wasn't even far. In fact, it was right near the same venue where we had the party. My hands started shaking. I kept telling myself, no, this has to be a mistake. There's got to be some explanation. Business? Maybe a surprise planning thing for the party? But even as I said those things to myself, my gut was already screaming the truth I didn't want to hear. I stood there, gripping that tiny piece of paper like it was a ticking bomb. My ears were ringing, my mouth went dry, and suddenly, the whole house felt different, like the walls were closing in. I could barely breathe. This wasn't just a receipt. This was confirmation. Proof that something was happening right under my nose. That little whisper of doubt. Oh, it was no longer whispering. It was screaming. Something was wrong. Horribly, horribly wrong. I paced the living room, clutching that receipt like my life depended on it. My mind was racing, flipping between denial and this sickening realization that maybe, just maybe, The man I trusted with everything wasn't who I thought he was. I kept asking myself, could I really be that blind? Am I losing my mind? Or is there something right in front of me that I've been refusing to see? My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I sat down, staring at that stupid little slip of paper, trying to connect the dots. The hotel, the timing, the way Ryan had been different lately, a little more distant, a little too eager to be helpful, like he was compensating for something. And then my mind went straight back to that video, to that touch, to that glance. Suddenly, it wasn't just a weird coincidence. It was a pattern, a truth that had been quietly living in plain sight, waiting for me to finally open my eyes. I wanted to believe I was wrong. God, I wanted to believe it more than anything. But something inside me shifted in that moment. Something cold, something sharp. I just knew that this was only the tip of the iceberg. That if I had the courage to pull this thread, everything, and I mean everything, was about to unravel. I wasn't sure what I'd find. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't ignore this anymore. That night, after Ryan went to bed, I couldn't sleep. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, and my mind kept racing in circles. I kept thinking, am I really about to do this? Am I really the kind of woman who checks her husband's phone? But you know what? At that point, I didn't care. I needed answers. I deserved answers. So when I heard the water running from his shower the next morning, I did it. I grabbed his phone, unlocked it, and for the first time in our entire marriage, I went looking for the truth. And there it was, plain as day. Right there in front of me. Message after message. Texts that made my stomach twist into knots. Flirty, playful, intimate. Him and Vanessa. Miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely scroll. I felt like the floor disappeared under me, like I was free-falling into this cold, suffocating void I couldn't climb out of. My entire marriage, my whole life, it shattered in an instant. But you know what hit me even harder than the messages themselves? It was realizing that while I was blowing out birthday candles, making wishes surrounded by family and friends, she was right there, standing next to me, smiling at me, hugging me, pretending to be my friend, while knowing damn well that she was sleeping with my husband. The humiliation, the betrayal, it wasn't just private, it was public. It happened in front of everyone, and I had no idea. I can't even describe the wave of emotions that hit me. It was like grief and rage collided all at once. One second I was sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. The next, my tears dried up and this fire started building inside me. A fire I didn't even know I was capable of. I kept hearing this voice in my head screaming, how could they? How could he bring her into my birthday, into my home, into my life, like this? The sheer cruelty of it. The audacity. I kept scrolling, hands shaking, reading more, photos, plans, little inside jokes, proof that this wasn't some random mistake. This wasn't some fling that happened once and then faded away. No, this was deliberate, ongoing. And the worst part? They were comfortable. Comfortable enough to flirt while I was right there. Comfortable enough to laugh behind my back. To pretend to be part of my life while stabbing me right in the heart. I felt sick. Physically sick. And then something shifted. The pain started turning into something else, something sharper, something colder. No, I whispered. No. You don't get to do this to me. Not like this. If they were bold enough to parade this affair in front of me, bold enough to smile in my face while tearing apart my marriage. Then, I was going to be just as bold. I was done being the fool in my own story. Done sitting quietly while they laughed behind closed doors. No. This wasn't going to end the way they thought. I sat there staring at his phone, gripping it like it was the last piece of my sanity holding me together. My hands were numb, my chest felt like it was being crushed. But beneath all that, something was crystal clear. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. Not like this. Not quietly. If you two thought you could humiliate me, at my own birthday, in front of everyone I love, well, you have no idea who you've been messing with. I whispered those words like a promise. A vow. It's wild how betrayal can flip a switch inside you. One moment you're the loving wife, trusting, devoted, believing in the life you built together. And the next, you become someone you don't even recognize. Someone colder, sharper, stronger. The version of yourself that only shows up when survival becomes non-negotiable. And in that moment, survival meant one thing: revenge. Not the petty kind, not the impulsive, reckless kind. No, I was going to do this right. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath. And as painful as it was, I started thinking clearly, clearer than I had in weeks, maybe even years. If you were bold enough to bring this into my birthday, to put her in my photos, in my memories, then I'll be bold enough to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and what you've done. I stood up, clutching that phone like a weapon. And right then, a plan started forming in my mind, a plan they'd never see coming. I knew I couldn't just confront him in private. No. That would be too easy for him. Too easy for both of them. They needed to feel this the way I felt it. Public, humiliating, undeniable. So with a smile that probably looked far more convincing than it should have, I told Ryan I wanted to host a little dinner. Just to thank everyone who made my birthday so special. Oh, and of course, Vanessa had to come too. Naturally, after all. She was such a dear friend. The look on Ryan's face? Completely unsuspecting, clueless. He even seemed proud of me. Like, wow, what a thoughtful wife I have. I watched him as he helped me plan it, texting friends, making reservations, suggesting the guest list. Every time he smiled at me, every time he kissed my cheek, I wanted to laugh at how utterly blind he was to what was coming. And Vanessa? Oh, she replied to the invitation like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world. In the days leading up to that dinner, I felt this strange calm wash over me. Like the storm had already passed. Like something inside me snapped and was never going back to the way it was. I wasn't the same woman who smiled at her birthday party thinking her life was perfect. No. That version of me, she was gone. Now, I was someone else. Someone sharper, colder, focused. And as the night approached, all I could think was, you two wanted to turn my birthday into a joke. Well, let's see how you enjoy being the punchline. The night of the dinner arrived, and I swear, you'd think it was any other happy little gathering. Everyone showed up smiling, chatting, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Ryan walked in like the king of the castle, charming, confident, holding my hand like the devoted husband he pretended to be. And Vanessa? Oh, she walked in like she owned the room. Hair perfectly done, that fake little smile plastered on her face, like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. I greeted everyone, hugged them, made small talk, and the entire time, my heart was pounding, not from nerves, from adrenaline, from power. Because for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I held the cards. Every word I spoke, every glance I threw their way, was calculated. controlled. I watched Ryan laugh. I watched Vanessa sip her wine, pretending to be just another friend. And I thought to myself, keep smiling, sweetheart. Drink it in, because you have no idea what's coming. When dinner was finally served, I stood up, tapped my glass, and smiled as everyone turned to look at me. I just wanted to say a few words, I began, and oh, you could have heard a pin drop. I started soft, sweet, talking about love, trust, gratitude. About how lucky I was to be surrounded by such wonderful friends and family. I watched Ryan relax, smiling proudly at me. I saw Vanessa nodding, sipping her wine, completely at ease. And that's when I felt it. That electric, almost delicious moment. The one right before everything comes crashing down. And then I shifted. My smile didn't fade. It just sharpened. And speaking of gratitude, there's someone very special I'd like to thank tonight. I turned, locking eyes with her. Vanessa. Vanessa, thank you. Not just for being here tonight, but for all the quality time you've spent, entertaining my husband when I wasn't around. The silence was instant, suffocating. You could literally feel the air being sucked out of the room. Ryan's face? Oh, it was like watching a man get hit by a freight train. His jaw dropped. His eyes darted around the table like he was searching for an escape hatch that didn't exist. Vanessa? Pale? Frozen? Her hand still gripping her wine glass mid-sip, like if she stayed perfectly still, maybe, just maybe, she'd disappear. But no. There was no disappearing tonight. Not for them. And just when they probably thought, she's bluffing. There's no way. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and started reading. Out loud. Message after message. Texts that left no room for doubt. No wiggle room. No explanations. The flirty jokes. The late-night meetups. The photos. The receipts, figuratively and literally. The gasps. The shocked whispers. The looks exchanged around that table. Oh, they were everything. Because at that moment, the truth wasn't just out. It was undeniable. And there was no going back. I didn't stay to watch the aftermath. I didn't need to. I stood there long enough to let it sink in. Long enough to see Ryan's face go ghost white. Long enough to watch Vanessa crumble into a stuttering mess. And then I grabbed my purse, straightened my shoulders, and walked out of that restaurant with my head held higher than it had ever been. Their chaos, their shame, their panic. Not my problem. Not anymore. The moment I stepped outside, it felt like I could finally breathe again. For the first time in a long, long time, the weight wasn't on me. It was on them. And as much as it hurt, God did it hurt, something else started to settle in. This overwhelming sense of freedom, of clarity, of knowing that I wasn't the fool anymore. I wasn't the woman sitting in the dark, wondering what was real and what was a lie. No. I knew the truth now, and the truth had set me free. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. No second guesses. No tears. I filed for divorce, blocked them both on everything. Social media? Gone. Phone numbers? Deleted. Emails? Straight to spam. But you know what I didn't delete? The truth. Oh no. I made sure everyone knew it. Friends. Family. Anyone who might have heard his version of things before he had the chance to spin it? No. He wasn't going to rewrite this story. I was. And you know what surprised me the most? The way people showed up for me. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months started reaching out, checking in, offering support, saying things like, I always knew something felt off about him. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages, calls, people telling me how proud they were, how brave I was. how they couldn't believe the audacity, but also how they admired the way I handled it. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. Even people I barely knew started whispering about it. Neighbors, acquaintances, people who had been at that dinner, and even some who had just heard about what happened. Did you hear what Emma did? She caught him cheating and exposed him right there, in front of everyone. Oh, the story spread like wildfire. And honestly, I wasn't ashamed of a single second of it. Why should I be? I didn't break anything. I didn't lie. I didn't betray anyone. That was their mess. I just made sure everyone could see it clearly. And Ryan? Oh, he tried. Of course he did. Tried texting me, calling me, leaving these pathetic voicemails filled with half-baked apologies and desperate excuses. It didn't mean anything. I made a mistake. We can fix this. As if. As if you can set fire to someone's life and then act shocked when there's nothing left to save? No. Not this time. Not me. I was done playing the role of the forgiving, understanding wife. That woman? She didn't exist anymore. I swear. There's this moment after the storm where you just breathe, where the silence isn't scary anymore. It's peaceful, liberating. I remember standing in front of my mirror a few days later, just staring at myself, really looking. Not at the broken woman I thought I'd see, but at someone stronger. Someone who survived something designed to shatter her. Someone who refused to let it. I smiled. Not the same smile from before. A different one. One that said, "I'm still standing, and you didn't win." I whispered to my reflection. They showed up to my party thinking they could humiliate me, thinking they could laugh behind my back, but look who's laughing now. And honestly, I meant every word. Because yes, the betrayal hurt. It broke pieces of me I didn't even know could break. But it also woke something up inside me. Something fierce. Something that refuses to ever be small again. They thought they'd crushed me. What they actually did was set me free. And as I walked away from it all, from him, from her, from that entire mess, I realized something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. Sometimes the worst thing someone does to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. Because now, I'm not just walking away. I'm walking away, winning, with my head high, with my heart intact, and with the last word. And trust me, the last laugh is mine.